In 2013, my wife and I divorced and we both moved into separate homes. Divorce went well and we are still good friends to this day, partly because we have a daughter together. We agreed to split custody over our daughter and I rented an old house in an historic district in the city where we live. It was a very pretty home, built in 1935, but kept up very well. I could have my daughter 2 weeks at a time and she had a bedroom in the back of the house. She was 3 years old at the time and I kept noticing her talking to her friend. One day I found her in a little closet talking to someone and I remember her saying she was talking to another little girl named Betty. I have no idea where she heard the name Betty. She was only 3 years old, but I just chalked it up to a child's vivid imagination. Keep in mind, I'm a single dad to a little girl. I really have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to dressing, hair, or just little girl stuff in general. Her mother is good at that stuff, but not me. I put my daughter to bed one night after her bath. I remember brushing her hair that night, but that was all I did. The next morning, her mom came to pick her up from my house and my daughter was just waking up. Her mom went back to her room and found my daughter's hair was fixed in 2 perfect French braids. Her mom was real proud of me at first that I had done her hair so cute, but I told her I couldn't do that. Can't even braid her hair, much less do perfect French braids. We asked her how her hair got fixed and she told us that Betty had done it during the night. I broke the contract on the rental agreement and moved out within the next month. I don't know exactly where the story would go, so I'll just post it here. Alright, so this happened to me maybe a month ago and I'm just now getting the courage to post about it. Some things to mention before I start is I do not believe in the supernatural or anything of the sort. Also, I nearly have 1,500 acres of land behind my house, a pure wood area. So I was sitting outside on my porch after me and my dad got into a heated argument. It was about 7 p.m. and it was already dark, so to pass the time I turned on my TV. I'd been out there for an hour before I heard some sounds coming from the trees and bushes nearby. We have a lot of raccoons, and I heard the noise from right about where my trash can was at the time, so I thought nothing of it. But again, about 10 or 15 minutes later, I heard a noise. This time it sounded like walking, and shortly after, I heard the sound of a branch snapping. Not a stick, or anything, of a full tree branch. It caught me by surprise, but I saw nothing, and I just ignored it again. This was my first mistake. Right then and there, I should have went back into my house. The rest of the night was fairly normal besides some footsteps here and there. I went out the next day to see what made the noise. As I suspected, there was a broken tree branch and some footprints. The footprints were strange. They looked human, but at the same time almost like coyote tracks. I have plenty of coyotes where I live. I live smack dab in the most secluded part of Kansas. I thought it was weird, but continued my day. Again, I went out there at night, this time hoping I would catch something out in the woods. I sat there for about 45 minutes before I turned on the TV out of boredom. I watched some Family Feud and glanced out to the woods every once in a while. I never saw anything weird until commercials started coming on. I looked out to the woods and I saw something. It looked like a coyote, but it was too wide and sitting like a frog. It almost looked human-like. We stared at each other for a while, and then it said something. It was very mumbled and sounded scratchy like a broken record. But it sounded like my mom. My mom has been dead nearly for 6 years, so I knew it wasn't her. And then it said something.
You're silly. Why would you hide from your mother?
After that, I bolted inside and never looked back. Didn't even turn off the TV. I wasn't brave enough to even look out the windows till the next day. Sure enough, I saw the prints again. The same human coyote prints as the day before. Never saw it again after that. My friend said maybe it was an elk, but deep down I know that's not true. Whatever it was, I hope I never see it again. Located on a Native American reservation in the PNW, my husband at the time and I were stargazing in a hot tub on a chilly January night. The hot tub is nestled on a deck that looks over the bay that reaches about 10 yards or so off the deck. Imagine a cul-de-sac of water where you can see distant sparkling lights, hear barking dogs, and late-night parties of all the surrounding neighborhoods. It's like living in a big bowl where you can hear things going on miles away. To the right, about half a mile down, is the Native Cultural Center with an exhibit on Native history. A couple classrooms and a longhouse where the Native host activities such as powwows for tribal members. On this particular night, there was a powwow, as my husband and I were relaxing and just taking the night sky with the soundtrack of singing, humming. We began to hear in the far distance howling. Coyotes are common here. Wolves are not. I couldn't tell you what type of animal was howling, but it was not a domesticated dog. It was primal and guttural. Soon after the powwows, the people started howling as well. No more than 5 minutes later, my husband and I see a canine-like figure on 4 legs, running along the beach of the bay, silently illuminated by the moon. We watch this figure run towards the cultural center, seamlessly gliding over the neighborhood's large dock that stood about 3 feet off the ground. I've never in my existence seen an animal of that size. Moments later, we hear the howls of a creature, the same we heard earlier, but on the other side of us. As soon as we heard it, the powwow of people started yipping and howling as well. This happened years and years ago, but I still remember the eerie chill of that moment. I should add, this was on the first full moon of the year, the one the natives call Wolf Moon. Werewolf? Skinwalker? I don't know, but I know what we saw that night, and it was definitely supernatural. At the time, my house was situated perpendicular to a wooded area. It was just a normal, lazy summer day. I stepped onto the porch to stretch my legs and get some fresh air. I glanced over towards the tree line and immediately noticed a black silhouette of what appeared to be a man. My eyes are deceiving me, so I thought. 30 feet in the canopy of an old dark tree he sat. I was perplexed. At that height, the branches couldn't bear the weight of a squirrel, let alone a man. He was kneeling down, one arm above his head grasping the branch above as to balance himself. Solid black, a Vanta black, no defining features whatsoever. It was just a solid black mass, but no doubt it was a man. I was fixated as I stared at him. I could tell he was staring right back at me. We stared at each other for what seemed an eternity. Then suddenly he stood up and started running, jumping from tree to tree. Eventually, my house obstructed my view, so I gave chase, but to no avail. As I rounded the corner, he was gone. I ran into the trees but could see nothing except swaying branches on a calm summer afternoon. That was roughly 25 years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Suppose you don't forget an experience like that. Never really gave much thought to the paranormal or otherworldly before that, or after, really. It wasn't until about 10 years later, as I was flipping through the channels, that I stumbled across a documentary about shadow people. I knew immediately that's what I had witnessed way back then. I don't know. I could be hallucinating, but I'm not the only one who's experienced it. My girlfriend and I live at my parents' house, as rent has become too expensive for even 2 people to maintain, especially paying for school. We've noticed odd things happening, but the more spookier stuff has only begun. A few weeks ago, I was casually playing Overwatch 2 around 11 p.m., with my girlfriend passed out on the bed to my left. I should note that I do smoke weed, but this night I was sober as it was a work night. I don't remember the exact time, but I could hear my girlfriend calling me.
Babe, come out here, babe.
From outside my window that is on my right. All muffled, as if she were loudly speaking into the window. I was confused, but just shrugged it off as if it were nothing. I took it as a sign I needed to go to sleep. This next event happened only this past Friday night. I was high this night with my friend, playing Minecraft, and my girlfriend again was passed out on the bed. Again, it happened. In her voice, from the same window.
Babe, come out here, babe.
This time it was loud and clear, as if the window was open. I sat in shock for a few minutes before I turned on my camera on Discord and messaged my friend to keep an eye on me, as if I was afraid speaking would attract more. Like I said, this was the spookier one, but not the only activity. Over the past few months, me and my girlfriend would see a shadow figure in the corner, whom we've come to call the Man in the Hat. The shadow figure looks like a silhouette of a stereotypical 1920s trenchcoat detective. He only appears in two corners, the one with my closet door and the door leaving the room. Over his past few visits, I've noticed that he appears in the corner of which is closer to where my dog is laying down. So maybe a previous owner of my dog, I guess? I don't really know, but I can't continue to write it off as if it's nothing. For as long as I can remember, my basement has always had a negative feeling. It's cold, dark down there, so I've just assumed it's in my head. Today at noon I went down and was beginning to disassemble a bassinet so I could clean it before giving it to a coworker. My 2.5-year-old began screaming hysterically and running across the room. He was staring at the ceiling the entire time. His face went white and I had to take him back upstairs so he could calm. Our laundry room is down there. We go down there often. He even has toys down there, and we play down there often. My kiddo was barely verbal and possibly on the spectrum, so I can't really ask him what he saw. He doesn't normally freak out like that, though. I have never felt, seen, or even heard anything in the rest of the house. Is it actually possible for it to only be in the basement? No one has died in my house. The house was built in 2012, and there's been no records of previous structures. I searched all of this before because my oldest, 18 years old, has been convinced that the basement is haunted for a while now. The bassinet I was messing with is used and has been passed down a couple of times now. My son hated it, and so did my niece. Is it possible for the bassinet to be what it's attached to? If so, can I cleanse the bassinet? I don't want to pass it on to someone else if it's haunted. I would like to remain anonymous due to privacy reasons. I was hesitant to share this story because it still scares me, but my friends talked me into sharing. The location of the story is Maple Mountain, Ontario, Canada. It happened during the beginning of September in 2017. I had a few days off from work, so I decided to go hiking around Maple Mountain within the Temagami region. I've always enjoyed hiking in this area with friends, but I decided to go alone this time. I wanted to go to a new area, to maybe scout it out, to see if it would be a challenge for me and my friends. To get to my planned hiking route, I had to portage for many hours. For those of you who don't know, when you portage, you basically carry a boat between different bodies of water, like rivers in the middle of land masses, or sometimes people will carry a cargo. And it was very tiring. My dad had recently bought me a trail cam because I wanted to get into tracking and wildlife photography. I decided to bring it along for fun. Little did I know what I would capture with it. I've only tested it a few times with my dog as a subject, but I thought it would be an interesting idea to see if I could get any shots of the local wildlife. I've never been in this area of the park before, and never too close to the mountain itself, but I decided to do it this time. I found a relatively flat area to pitch my tent under the shelter of a large tree. The first night went well, but it was quite cold. But that was expected. The second day, I reached the north end of the mountain, which is known for being very difficult to navigate and traverse, but I liked the challenge. I made a camp on a flat ridge, but did not make a fire because I didn't want to scare the wildlife. It was around 7:30 p.m. when I decided to test out my trail cam, so I attached it to the tree just outside my camp. Around 8:15, I heard some odd humming sound, but I thought it was just the wind or my ears playing tricks on me, so I thought nothing of it and went to bed. During my sleep, I had a nightmare of a white object moving in and out of the trees, making the humming sound I heard earlier, but then when I woke up, I felt like I only slept an hour. but I woke up at 11 in the morning, which felt strange. I just assumed I was tired from my journey and just had a deep sleep. I started packing up camp and grabbed my trail cam and started making my way up Maple Mountain. It took 2 hours to get to the top of the mountain from my camp, and I took a break and sat on a dead log. The wind was strangely calm, considering it was quite windy climbing from the ridge where my camp was. It was starting to get dark, so I started to leave the mountaintop to get back to my camp. However, before leaving, I left my trail cam on the mountaintop, next to the dead log I sat on before. When I was climbing back down to my camp, many birds flew up in the sky as something spooked them, and I heard the humming again. This time I felt unnerved by it, and things were getting eerie. I was very relieved when I got to the camp. This night I slept, the nightmare returned, but this time I could see the white object was moving closer to my camp, and I woke up abruptly. I woke up at exactly 11, just like before. I was starting to get quite creeped out by the things happening on this mountain and felt the need to leave. I remembered I had left my trail cam at the mountaintop. Not wanting to leave the cam my dad bought me, I built up the courage to go get it. When I got to the top of the mountain again, I heard the humming, but this time it was much louder than I remember and sounded like it was getting closer. There was definitely something not right about this, so I grabbed my trail cam and got the hell out of there, rushing to my camp and packing up. The humming faded the farther away I got from the mountain, but I heard no bird or animals as the forest seemed dead. When I finally got out of the forest, all I was thinking about was if the trail cam got any images of the source of the humming, or something to explain what was going on around me, and boy am I glad I brought it. I only got 4 clips of it, and for some reason they get all static and shaky at the end, even though I found the camera untouched. Hey guys, Dr. Freak Show here. I hope you enjoyed these 7 scary stories told by my nice little campfire. For anyone wanting to see the video from the last story, I'll link it in the description. The user posted a link to his YouTube on the original thread. Otherwise, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you want more. And, feel free to leave any stories you guys have in the comments. Any category, it doesn't really matter. And I'll get to them in another video. I hope you guys enjoyed your stay at the Freak Show.